Hello everyone, my name is Pawan and I welcome you all towards my channel. So guys, today we'll be learning of Transfer of Property Act 1882, the major important sections like from section 3 to actually section 53A, all the important component section as a law student which you're supposed to know in a very simplified manner. I'll be covering up in this Pura Act. Okay, there are certain sections which you can eliminate which is not that important, but yes, all the sections which I'm going to explain over here, please do make sure that you have a proper reading over here, because that essence of knowledge can literally help you a lot for your upcoming days in terms of your law college exams or any kind of other competitive based exams. It's surely going to help you a lot. So now let's try to understand what is Transfer of Property Act. So why it is basically introduced. First you'll understand the meaning of what is transfer. See guys, transfer means move the property from one person to another. That means that red color smiley face you can see, that is me, and yellow color smiley face, that is you. For example, if your name is Kamal, just imagine. Now I am basically giving my property to Kamal, and in return what is Kamal giving it to me? He is giving me cash or money. So some cases he won't be giving me anything, because if he is my son, he will directly take the property. Now, just remember, transfer means move the property from one person to other person is called as transfer. It's a bacha definition. We have already learned this in our first standard. Now, second thing, what is property? See guys, in property, there are three important components. First one is called as ownership. Second one is possession. Third one is result of human efforts. So why it is ownership? Very simple. If I am the owner of my land, then I'll be called as ownership possesses rights with me. Possession is that you have the property, just property is there with you, but complete ownership of that land is not there with you. Even though I'm giving complete land to Kamal, he is not the owner, still is just possessing the land. That's called possession. Third thing is about result of human effort. See guys, for buying the property, for giving something in return, there's some kind of human efforts, right? So that is also one of the major components under property. So guys, this is the major classification between the transfer and the property. So now let's try to understand what's the main meaning of property. Okay, so now as per the Benami Transaction Prohibition Act of 1888, section 2 says that property means property of any kind, whether movable or immobile, tangible, intangible, and includes any rights or interest in such property. You don't understand anything, I know very well. So it's like Benami Transaction Prohibition Act. From that particular act, we try to understand what is property. So don't worry if you do not know what's the meaning of immovable, movable, tangible, intangible, nothing, don't worry. But for the time being, remember, I'll just explain in the upcoming slides what is the meaning in much depth. But for the time being, remember, it's just definition of what is property. They're telling that it could be a movable property, it could be the land, or it could be an immovable property. It could be in different way. Immovable property can also be an example. Now, tangible property, tangible is something which you can touch and feel. Intangible property is something which you cannot touch and feel. For example, like copyright, patent and all comes over there. So it is basically an overall essence of the property. So three things you need to keep in the mind. So as per the Benami Transaction Prohibition Act, it says that three important components like what is property, rights and interest. These three important components is what highlighted in a property. If you've not understood anything, no worries, but the upcoming slides, your knowledge will be very awesome in terms of this act. So now guys, let's try to understand how the property is basically transferred. There are two important components for it. It can be first one by the act of parties. So by the act of parties, property can be transferred, or by the operation of law. For example, if you are staying in Bangalore and I am the government, I'm constructing metro, I'll ask you to leave the property and go out. So at that point of time, you're supposed to leave and go, right? So that is called as by the operation of law. It can be like attachment, forfeiture, etc. I'll go depth about it, don't worry. And second one, first category is about by the act of parties. So first one is about testamentary. Second one is inter vivos. Okay, what is testamentary? See guys, I am Pawan and I have my son, his name is Kamal. So now I am transferring my property to him. It's an ancestral property. So that's called as testamentary or testamentary. Now inter vivos, it's nothing but it is between the living two persons, like how it is being done. And in inter vivos itself, we have movable, immobile. So in immobile, for example, we have sale, mortgage, gift, exchange, lease, etc. Don't worry, everything I'll be covering up in the upcoming slides, but for the time being, just remember these basic things. So this is how the property is basically transferred in a very simplified manner. So the important sections which we'll be trying to learn over here is about first one. See guys, we'll be studying, so for the preliminaries, the section from 1 to 4, it's just preliminary, and rules is from 5 to 53. Don't worry, only these two I'll be covering up in this particular पूरा वीडियो, but remaining about sales, which is from sale, mortgage, lease, exchange, gift and actionable claim, in the upcoming days or upcoming videos I'll be uploading. But for the time being, let's just focus in terms of preliminary and rules. That two important sections from your exam centric point of view as well as from your general centric point of view, I'll be covering it over here. So guys, now let's directly start with section 3, okay? So now why I've skipped out the section 1 and section 4 is because these are very basic sections. If you want, there I can make a separate video on it, but from your exam centric point of view or as a general understanding point of view, you don't need to waste much time over there. So now moving directly to section 3. Section 3 speaks about interpretation clause. So now in interpretation clause, there are 7 important components which is mentioned. Very important, guys. This is one of the basic essential basic essential aspects which you need to know from the property law side. First one is about immobile property. Second one is instrument. Third one is attested. Fourth one is registered. Fifth one is basically attached to the earth. Sixth one is actionable claim, and seventh one is notice. So now let's go one by one and learn every under components of this interpretation clause in the section 3. So now starting with section 3, first part, that is about immobile property. Okay, see guys, immobile property, like as per the TP Act, Transfer of Property Act 1882 says that it does not include standing timber, growing crops or grass. Don't study this definition, you won't understand anything, but I'll explain to you in a very simple way. So what I did was, like, I took this very good definition from General Clause Act 1897 about what is an immobile property. See guys, immobile property shall include land, benefits to raise out of the land. See, the things is like includes land. See, the land, for example, where you're staying, the benefits you're trying to get from that land, the revenue which you're trying to generate, and the things attached to the earth. All that, for example, if it could be any kind of plants or something like that, things attached to the earth, or permanently fastened to anything attached to the earth. So general understanding of General Clause Act 1897, you got some kind of idea, but now I'll try to elaborate on this General Clause Act 1897. So starting with the first line in the General Clause Act is that about land. So land means something of the surface of the earth. For example, which place you're standing, consider that as an example, okay? Which place you're staying, that surface of the earth is basically considered as land. Now next important component is benefits arises out of the land. So what are the benefits you're trying to get out of that particular land? That can also be considered as an immobile property. Third thing, things attached to the earth. See guys, when I'm telling things attached to the earth, there are two things. One is things embedded in earth, and second one is things rooted in the earth. What is things embedded in earth? See, it could be like well, house. That means that in your land, for example, what all things you have, for example, it can be an house, it can be an well, all that is called as things embedded. So I am embedding my, for example, chocolates inside the box. I'm just attaching, or for example, the chocolates are embedded in my cake. So in that cake, chocolates are there. Similar way, in your land, if buildings are there, we consider it as things embedded in earth. It could be like house, well. Now, for example, things rooted in the earth. What are the things rooted in earth? It could be like standing timber. Things rooted in earth, everything which is rooted in earth. For example, it could be like, plants, everything which not plants is coming under this one. That is also an immobile property, except three things. One is standing timber, growing grass, as well as growing crops is basically considered as things rooted in earth. These are the few exceptional cases, whereas in other cases, plants and all is still considered as an immobile property, except these three kind of exceptions. So now the second part is about instrument. Under the section 3, second part is instrument, which says that it could be a legal document or something like a contract, deed, will and bond. So all this, for example, in an instrument, when will we tell? Instrument, we will tell under the TP Act, it's like an any kind of an agreement. For example, when two parties are agreeing together, what they form a contract, and sometimes they form deed, they form will, they form bond. So all these legal documents is called as instrument. Just write it down in your notes somewhere. Okay. Now attested, here it is mentioned that attested in relation to an instrument means and shall be deemed always to have meant attested by two or more witness. If you didn't understand this definition, no problem, I'm explaining it to you. See, that's the reason TP Act directly you can't read it. It's not like a normal English. So basic understanding is that attested by two or more persons. See, for example, it could be in terms of signature or involves an instrument. That means that an instrument, a legal document, when two people are signing together. For example, I want to purchase a land. So I am purchasing Kamal ka land. So now we are signing this agreement paper. That involves an attested. Attested means what? Attested by two or more parties. It's like an authenticity. That's what it is done. Now there are certain exception for us. For example, if you're an sound mind person, or if you're a fraudulent action you're trying to do, that will be considered as void. But in other cases, yes, it is still considered as validity. Now Next important aspect, fourth important aspect is called registered. So registered means what? Registered means registered in any part of the territories which this act extends further on. So that means you can understand this one line itself, but if I am telling in a simple language, that means that in my name the entire property is basically registered. Anywhere across the India if I go, that still it is considered as my own property. This is the major four components which you need to know in terms of section 3. So now what is this attached to the earth? See guys, for attached to the earth, there are three important components, things embedded in earth. I have already explained to you what is embedded in earth. So for example, it could be like house, buildings and all. Now the things rooted in the earth, for example, it could be plants, trees and all. Okay. And the next one is about things attached to what is so embedded to the earth. For example, it could be like windows, shutters, doors. It's not buildings, but in that building, what are the components attached to it that is coming under this attached to the earth. What is this actionable claim? See guys, actionable to the claim, for example, if I'm giving 10,000 rupees to Kamal. Okay, so now Kamal has a duty to repay back to me, but for 1 or 2 months I'll be not taking this one. So later after 1 or 2 months, I have to pay a certain amount to Karthik. Okay, at that point of time, what I'll do is that I will transfer my right of collecting money from Kamal to that Karthik. That means I'll tell Karthik, you can go take the amount from Kamal, don't come to me. So I'm transferring my right to another person. That's called as an actionable claim in a very simple understanding. Now next last point, that's the seventh one, is about notice. So what is notice? Notice is nothing but it's about reasonable mention about the facts of that particular what do we call the particular kind of contract, or it could be in terms of the facts should be very clear. That means that something you mention in the contract and the way of act is completely different, that won't be possible. So what is your main intention of this particular thing should be very clear in the facts system. So facts provided should be completely correct. So guys, these are the most important components of section 3. That is about, first we discussed about immobile property, instrument, attested, registered, attached to the earth, actionable claim and notice. So guys, that's all for today. You'll find all the remaining list of videos in my playlist of the property law. Wish you all the best. Good luck.